Standing, may we please have the national anthem. We may be seated. Once again, a very good morning to everyone who is in this room. Let me take this opportunity to welcome our guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Mechanization, and Water Resources Development, Dr. Anxious Masuka. Welcome, Doc. Let me also welcome the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Professor Obed Jiri, who I'm sure will join us. Also welcome the CEO of Zimpapers, Mr. William Chikoto, who is also with us. Distinguished panelists, members of the Diplomatic Corps who are with us, captains of industry and agribusiness, esteemed farmers, all agriculture stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. Before I set the scene for this morning, may I ask Ms. Pauline Matanda, Zimpapers Public Relations Officer, to open us with a prayer.
Let us bow our heads and pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Lord, we thank you for this day, for it is a day that you have made, and we will rejoice in it. We thank you, Lord, for this gathering. We thank you for each and everyone in our midst. We pray, Father, that you may bless us as we continue with the proceedings. We pray that you may bless the agricultural sector. We pray that you may bless Zimpapers. Lord, bless the farmers. Bless Zimbabwe in the mighty name and blood of Jesus. We pray, Father, as we are starting, we pray for your presence. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mai Matanda, for the prayer. Now, Once again, good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Zimpapers public lecture series. Thank you for coming, and for those who are joining us online, because this event is being live streamed across all Zimpapers platforms, our newspapers, our radio stations, any online platform on Zimpapers, we are live streaming this event. So it's going to many people apart from those who are in this room. Let me cut straight to the heart of why we are here today. We gather under a theme that is not just a slogan, but a survival imperative. Smart harvest, resilient nation, agriculture as Zimbabwe's climate and economic shield. Right now, our farmers are looking at the sky with more than just hope. They are looking with anxiety. But rain or no rain, the question is the same. Will I harvest? Will my family eat? Will my business survive? What about the Zimbabwean economy? But today is not about fear. It is about strategy. It is about planning. Over the next few hours, we will deliberate and move to diagnose into action. We will hear from our Honorable Minister on the national vision. We will sit with him in a fireside chat to hear what really keeps farmers awake at night and the solutions that he has for the farmers. And then we will roll up our sleeves with a panel of experts to talk about seeds, soil, and real solutions as we face climate changes. Our objective is very simple: to leave here not with more questions, but with clear answers and a shared commitment to building an agricultural sector that can weather any storm. So I invite you to listen actively, question boldly, and take something practical back to your fields, to your offices, to your boards, and to your communities. Let us begin with we will hear welcome remarks from the CEO of Zimpapers, Mr. William Chikoto, who will deliver welcome remarks. Mr. Chikoto, sir. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes to the podium. You can use that side, sir. There's a staircase there. We can continue to give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies, and good morning to everyone. Let me acknowledge our guest of honor, Dr. Anxious Masuka. He's indeed a farmer. I'm told he was here much earlier before all of us got here. He expected us to get going quite early, so we've learned one or two things to say we must always be on time. Let me also acknowledge the PEMSEC, Professor Albert Jiri. I'm sure he will join us later. One of our main sponsors here, GMB, my brother CEO Badarai, will acknowledge you. I also saw the AMA CEO, and also have AFC, one of our major sponsors, other captains of industry, representatives of farmers' unions, and members of the media industry. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this important edition of the Zimpapers public lecture series. Today we are looking at smart harvest. As we look at a resilient nation, and we are looking at agriculture as Zimbabwe's climate and economic shield. So today's discussion comes at a time when agriculture has become more than just a sector of our economy. It has become a national resilience strategy, a climate adaptation tool, a source of livelihoods, and ultimately a pillar of Zimbabwe's food security and economic growth. Allow me to extend my very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, the Honorable Minister, who has consistently championed innovation, climate-smart agriculture, irrigation development, mechanization, value addition, and data-driven farming practices. Under his leadership, the agricultural sector continues to evolve from being dependent on rainfall to one that is now being anchored on science, technology, irrigation, and productivity. So we acknowledge the great work that he has done as he's leading the nation in this very important sector. But we have a contribution to make as Zimpapers. We are the leading media house in the country, and our duty is to be a catalyst for national dialogue, to be a platform where critical issues are debated, and a bridge connecting policymakers to the people they serve. So this public lecture series embodies that mission. It is our contribution to shaping the national conversation on the most pressing issue of our time, securing our food systems and economic future in the face of a changing climate. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest lessons of our time is that food security is no longer achieved solely through land or rainfall or inputs. It is increasingly achieved through information. A farmer who receives weather intelligence on time makes better decisions. A farmer who understands market prices makes better investments. A farmer who knows when pests are spreading responds faster. A farmer who understands government programs accesses opportunities more effectively. In short, information has become a critical agricultural input. So as Zimpapers, we are here to play our part. So this particular lecture follows under one of our hubs, the agribusiness hub, where we have dedicated ourselves to providing information. From Monday, we'll be launching an agribusiness letter, we'll be launching a podcast, and other platforms that we are going to be using to support the work that the Honorable Minister, under the guidance of His Excellency the President, is doing. So we want to move. We want policy to not to remain just a speech, but to become real action that becomes productivity. So as Zimpapers, we are here to continue to offer platforms of dialogue. And as Kudzi said, this particular event is being live streamed on all our platforms. Our audience reaches now more than 12.5 million people. So we reach every corner of this country through our radio stations, newspapers. We have Shona newspaper and Ndebele newspaper. So it's a big, big platform. So once again, thank you for coming early. Enjoy the conversation. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chikoto. A round of applause for the Zimpapers CEO, Mr. William Chikoto, for those welcome remarks. On my program, I had here Professor Jiri going to be introducing the minister. Professor Jiri is not yet here, so a round of applause as the Honorable Minister is coming to the podium. He's got a very busy schedule. He's going to be catching a flight to Mine Entra in Bulawayo soon after this event, so you can see the agency and also the importance he has placed to this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. All protocols observed. And allow me to keep on wearing this hat, and a few people think that's where the wisdom comes from. Just a correction, I'm actually not going to Mine Entra. I'll probably arrive Mine Entra about 6 p.m. I'll be going to Gokwe first for an engagement at midday, and thereafter hopefully to Mine Entra. And the engagement is about dams and ensuring that that dry part of the country also does not just rely on rainfall. I have a speech which my staff have said since January they've been writing speeches for me. And since January, I've been resisting reading the speeches until they threatened yesterday that they will not write again. So I said, well, if you spend so much time writing, I'll spend a bit of time reading. So allow me to deviate from the established protocol and read the speech, and especially because we have people online who might not be seeing my gestures and everything else. It is better to contextualize by reading a speech. But to accompany this, I also have some slides that I've prepared for you, so that together with my narration, we can try and catch up on what this visionary, the President, His Excellency Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, has done for us since 24 November 2017, not just in the agricultural space, but in every aspect of our life, so that we can become a prosperous and empowered upper middle income society by 2030. So I'm very pleased to join you today to discuss this Smart Harvest Resilient Nation being organized by Zimpapers, and we thank Zimpapers for the platform that they provide to communicate and reach out to the majority of Zimbabweans. And this podcast and everything that they are doing and launching shortly will go a long way in ensuring that information reaches the populace timely, and that information is turned into an input for increased production and productivity. But we hold this lecture series, perhaps the first that I have attended, in the context of the predicted Super El Nino, which has been compounded, of course, by the disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, which will result inevitably in disruptions in fuel supply, disruptions in fertilizer supply, but also elevated prices of this. About 20-30% of the world's fertilizer, principally urea, passes through that Strait of Hormuz. And I was hearing, going through the wheat belt, and we have a record wheat crop, and the youth were telling me, kana vakuenda kumba mazuano, vakuti akuenda ku Strait of Hormuz. So, in a context where climate change has become a constant, it is no longer about planning and thinking that climate change is some distant reality. Climate change is indeed real, and we know that for the climate scenarios to 2050, we know that Zimbabwe is predicted to become drier in the decades ahead, together with certain Southern African countries. And of the 7 catchments that we have, the Muzingwane catchment is expected to have a reduced rain-fed maize yield by as much as 33%, just as a result of climate change. So climate-smart agriculture and climate proofing must now be an everyday aspect of this nation. So while others, and many of us, as we heard earlier, think of this drought and elevated temperatures associated with that as a threat and as a crisis, through the astute leadership of His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, we put in place mechanisms for mitigation and adaptation. And through this leadership, we have seen, of course, the agricultural sector grow from a $5.2 billion industry to $10.3 billion by 2025. And now we are so confident that we'll be able to achieve a $15.8 billion industry by 2030. And last year, the country's GDP growth, annual growth, was a stellar 8.3%. agriculture was the top performer, growing by 28%, which is massive. And of the 8.3 GDP points, agriculture contributed 2.2%. But we know that agriculture can also have a drag effect, because in 2024, when we had the worst drought in living memory, agriculture shrunk by 6.6%, leading to the GDP growth for the country being a mere 1.7%. So agriculture can have this direct effect, cofactor, collateral effect on the rest of the economy, taking it upwards, as we saw when it grew by 28% and everything else 8.3%. When there is a drought, agriculture drags everything, and we saw the 1.7% growth in 2024. I was hoping that, yes, there is some sector value, and that's agriculture growth, 28%, and projected to be 6.9% growth this year, where the country is expected to also have a GDP growth of 5%. But the resilience that we are building as a nation, and in terms of choice at policy level, we have said we must climate-proof agriculture at two levels. The first is climate-proofing agriculture at household level, and then climate-proofing agriculture at national level. At household level, what we have chosen is a scientifically proven, fact-driven, sustainable, intensive conservation model called Pfumvudza Intwasa. And that must be complemented by agroecological tailoring. And simply put, agroecological tailoring means that what is grown by a farmer is not determined by what they want. What is grown by a farmer is determined by the exigencies of that agroecological zone. So if you wanted tea, go to Chipinge. And if you want bananas, go to Honde Valley. If you want sugar, go to Chiredzi. If you want traditional grains, go to regions 4 and 5. And if you want maize in regions 4 and 5, produce more sorghum, so you have something to exchange with the GMB. So under this program, we started in 2020, and we've seen a massive increase in the number of plots under Pfumvudza Intwasa, and I have a table there that indicates 254% increase since we started. 3 million plots in 2020, 11 million plots in 2025, 700,000 hectares last year under Pfumvudza Intwasa. This year, we plan to do 1 million hectares under Pfumvudza Intwasa. And we have seen that the yields under this model in maize, you look at 2021, the first season that we had, and then throughout you see that in the blue bars are actually the Pfumvudza yield versus the conventional. And you can see the master farmer effect, the early adopters, that in 2020, in the first season, the early adopters are ordinarily the better farmers. So you can actually see that their yields were higher compared to everyone else. But as you have more and more farmers, and you say for anyone to receive presidential inputs, you must have done Pfumvudza. So you now get some that just believe that Pfumvudza is done in order to receive presidential inputs. Yet Pfumvudza is a climate-smart practice that must be done by anyone, whether you receive presidential inputs or not, because that must be the way of climate-proofing agriculture at household level. My expectation is that this coming season, all the tenets of Pfumvudza will be carried out. I recall each time I talk about this, and I say when I was growing up, we used in August to be able to do this Nimbe and be able to do Lorumfudze. And those that are my age, you probably know that in communal areas. And we all gather on a particular day, and we cut and carry manure to a particular field. Sometime in September, October, the men go and spread the manure throughout the field. And then we come and plow. We then, of course, plant maize. but we put the manure everywhere, not necessarily where we're going to put the pip. Now, with Pfumvudza Intwasa, it's precision agriculture. We are saying do holing out and put that manure in that planting hole and not spread it like we used to do in the past. And you put your lime, you put your fertilizer, and then you get this massive yield response. 70% of Zimbabwean soils are pH 4.8, 3.8, so very acidic. In fact, recent studies have shown that our soils respond more to lime than they do to fertilizer. So starting this year, we'll ensure that every Pfumvudza farmer is putting some lime, and then that combination with fertilizer will be able to ignite the yield that we are looking at. I made reference at some stage to the launch of Pfumvudza last year, where we went to Insisa district and we had Mr. and Miss Pat Due, who actually now have produced 3.7 tons annually at their own homestead, and up from the less than 1 ton. And I had an interaction a while ago in Shavane with a 96-year-old who religiously does 5 plots, and I was challenging the others that are below 96 and say, look at this champion of Pfumvudza who yields 5 tons or so from the plots year in, year out, and they said, this is the way to go, and I hope that we all will be able to adopt that. We've also seen, of course, because of agroecological tailoring, not just the maize increase. There's the maize increase, and we'll be producing a booklet. We've done the analysis of all the 35 value chains and looking at the bread basket era and the Second Republic era. In every analysis, in every comparison, we actually have exceeded production that was in the bread basket era. And I will be making a few comments about what we wish now to be. But at this stage, in terms of traditional grains, maybe not displayed there, I must take a moment to reflect on the work that is done by the First Lady, Dr. Auxilia Mnangagwa, to champion traditional grains. 15% of Zimbabweans now regard Irish potatoes and rice as their staple food. And the culprits are in this room, the women. Because everyone works so hard, when they go home, they must look for a meal that is easy to cook. So parboiled rice and potatoes are easier than preparing sazarurkwes. Yet, we want sadza from finger millet. That's more nutritious. And that's why I have said that why do we look for biofortified foods? Why can't you look for naturally and God-fortified foods? Traditional grains, everything that we have. So hopefully with this persuasion, I will hear from the women in here that they will have taken the cue from the First Lady, and that they too will begin to produce more and eat more of traditional grains. Each drought year, and we've calculated from 1982, and the droughts, and I'll be showing you, each drought year, we calculate that we lose, as farmers, an average of $300 million through failed harvests. So that is massive. And we're saying, how do we ensure that we are able to get a little of that back? And through Pfumvudza Intwasa, we've also seen that in 2024, when we urged more and more people to do traditional grains, and more importantly, for government not to give maize seed in regions 4 and 5, we produced an additional 282,519 tons, equivalent to $103 million. So that's the upside of Pfumvudza combined with agroecological tailoring, and Pfumvudza done well. It means certainly this expected El Nino will not be as harsh on us as in other jurisdictions. We also climate-proof agriculture at national level. And what we've adopted and chosen as a nation is that we have 10,600 dams. We are constructing another 12, and we'll be constructing more. So let's have the national climate proofing agenda around these dams to bring more of them into use through accelerated irrigation development. And just as an example, from 1980 to 2020, we increased our irrigation area under irrigation from 151,000 hectares to 173,000 hectares. So they're representing a 14% increase in 40 years. But from 2020, we've increased this area from what you see, the 171,000 hectares there, to an unprecedented 258,773 hectares. In fact, as of yesterday, we had gone to 274,440 hectares, which is over 60% increase in just 5 years. In 40 years, the area increase was 14%. In 5 years, an area increase of 70%. So you can see the determination of the Second Republic to climate-proof agriculture at national level through accelerated irrigation development. By 2030, we want to have developed the 496,000 hectares. So we still have a very long way to go, which is why the president has declared that and directed that every dam must become an economy. And we put up an advert that said a dam is an economy. And there are 5-6 attributes that must be associated with each dam project. That first, we must impound the water, that is damming. And that is what we used to do in the past. When we did Tugimkosi 7-8 years ago, we impounded and we said we now have the biggest inland lake, so massive, 1,800 billion cubic meters of water. We sat back, we celebrated Kaitabira. And then we started, what do we use this water for? We started then another team to do a master plan for how to use the water. In the Second Republic, before you do the dam, what the water is intended to do is the project, not the dam. So you dam the water, you must ensure that there is rural development through supply of drinking water to the surrounding communities, and that there is irrigation development for the surrounding communities. There must be fisheries for the communities, but each dam must generate its own electricity. And now you can see Gwai Shangani, which is why we are slower now in completing these dams, because all the 12 dams that we inherited have now an expanded scope that includes all these elements. And if we are doing dams that are destined to deliver some water to cities such as Gwai Shangani delivering to Bulawayo, and also Kunji delivering to Harare, we ensure that we put in a 6th component. Because for every liter of water, 1,000 mils that you deliver through treatment works into houses, 80%, 800 mils is actually wastewater. And we see in Harare the challenges of conveyancing and treatment of wastewater, where Harare has polluted Lake Chivero as a result of not managing that wastewater side of things. So government in these projects will also be looking at that aspect. What I liked was the reception by over 1 million Zimbabweans who are associated with irrigation schemes. When in 2021 I visited irrigation schemes, there are 460 irrigation schemes in communal areas and some old resettlement areas. And of these, they are actually capable of irrigating 26,000 hectares. And in visiting them, you could see that there was one thing associated with them. There was an irrigation management committee led by the cleverest of clever people within the community. But their cleverness was limited to what they knew, and whether or not that translated to operating this pump manually or something else was different. And the scheme beneficiaries, each had half a hectare, a maximum of about a hectare. So they all chose what to produce. If you become older in my age, you probably say, I'm going to do a bit of groundnuts. And the other says, I'm going to do maize on my plot. The other is too old to do anything, at least he's it out to the nearest agri-tax officer. And the other simply says, no, I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to plant mangoes because I will not be weeding again my whole life. And the other says, vatete varwara, ndakumboinda asikuri kunaya. So it's fallow. So you had this variation in the management of these irrigation schemes. And of course, if the pump breaks down, the person who has the plot with mangoes says, my mangoes are not ripe yet, so I can't contribute. And the one with sugar beans say, I can't contribute alone, although I've harvested. So 50% of the schemes were dysfunctional in 2017. Now 75% of the schemes are functional because the Bubi-Lupane model. We went to the ashes of ash regions in Region 5 on sandy soils and say we wanted to do a proof of concept because we found out that there are 4 elements that need to be addressed in order to ensure that these schemes can run and contribute to the, not just the food and nutrition aspects of the beneficiaries, but also so that these become catalysts for rural transformation. The first was scheme governance. That the scheme aged as people aged. And I often, I don't know what time I have, but because guest of honors have all the time that they need to speak, and I make this, let me say it in your language. I say to people when I go out in the villages and where I'll be going to, vakambopinda maoke sumudzai maoko pana vakambopinda maoke mose ndafara chose rambai makasimudza maoko vakamboona okay rambai makasimudza maoko vakaona okay wacho hapana asi makambopinda maoke mukaona muchikudero mukapinda ngatitauro pamwe spa makapinda maspa mukaona ichishanda hatiti makambonzwa kuti spa pavharwa apa unoda kuti musikana wanga ari apa wanga ane nhumbu vaenda kunozvara mukambonzwa imi kuti maneja wafirwa navatete saka nhasi takavhara hazvipo handiti why because it is a company which is what we have done for all these irrigation schemes. We have now formed a company for each of them. That it is a company under the Companies and Other Entities Act. I don't know why people like to put my picture and not the picture of this. That's more important than me. Just go to the Bubi-Lupane one. So, when we started in 2021 there, I went with the president in September 2021. And we had done 180 hectares of wheat at the Bubi-Lupane irrigation scheme. And I said, Your Excellency, what do you see? And he says, I see what you see. And he called Vice President Chiwenga, called Vice President Mohadi, and he says, have you seen what he has seen and what I see? And we all concurred. And that is where we actually changed the name of the ministry. To say what we are doing is not growing wheat. Wheat is an intervention for rural development. That is our agent for rural transformation for the attainment of Vision 2030, which is why we call this the Presidential Vision 2030 Accelerator Model. That if you converted the 460 irrigation schemes on 26,000 hectares into a company and the people become the shareholders, 90 shareholders here, these shareholders work the land every day and they get their NEC wage at the end of every month. At the end of the crop cycle, they sit as shareholders, they look at the dividend and they declare a dividend. I had hoped that we had a slide where before and after, where you looked at the households that they've built and 5-6 roomed, solar powered and much more. So you can actually see that this wheat is not wheat. It is a catalyst for rural transformation, and I hope that we'll be able to do more. We now have converted 341 irrigation schemes onto this Vision 2030 accelerator model. And I put the young man there, CEO Adat, not Endamiko, because he drives that. And they just, I think this was about a month ago when we visited with Vice President Mohadi, the same irrigation scheme, sandy soils, but there you can see the wheat. Next slide. Development partners too are beginning to align with government policy. Here we have a UK-funded project that is looking at the Vision 2030 accelerator model. This is in Mad South. So certainly things are happening, and they have been able to provide drinking water to more than 12,500 as a result of the conveyancing that they have done to so many villages. But if you look at El Nino, and we do a presentation of El Nino somewhere, maybe there's a picture that shows our analysis of El Nino years from 1980 to 2024. And you can see the El Nino events and the rainfall that we have received. Fortunately for us, a super El Nino does not translate into a super drought for Zimbabwe. So you had 1996, 1997, 2015, 2016 declared super El Nino events, but moderate drought or below rainfall years for Zimbabwe, because although a super El Nino is declared on the basis of the weather developments in the South Central Pacific, yes, if you did your geography correctly, unfortunately, we're not told that when you draw the map of the world and you have South America to your left and you have Australia to your right, it means these are the closest if the Earth is shaped as a sphere, isn't it? So the South Central Pacific region we're talking about is the space between Australia and Chile, that area. They are very close to each other. If you fold that map that you used to draw thinking the Earth was flat, if you belonged to the flat Earth society, like most people did in the past. So that's the projection. And I'd wanted the team, I don't know whether they've been able to do that, to look at the balls by province, because we have a map of balls by province and the recharge following each El Nino year. And you would see that the recharge is lower and lower in progressive El Nino years. And that pattern is going to continue, which means reliance on underground water will also continue to be a challenge. 72% of Zimbabwe's population relies on underground water for their needs. So with this, we have a very massive program to drill 35,000 balls in 35,000 villages, which is why monitoring of underground water has become such a strategic imperative, so that we will understand the dynamics. Although Harare, with the more than 20,000 balls that you've drilled in Harare, we can see progressively the water table lowering and the recharge not coming to where it should be compared to other provinces. So the next time you drill a bore, please do get professional advice before you do so, in terms of depth, in terms of distance from your neighbors. So as we climate-proof agriculture, accelerating household food security, generating surpluses at household destined for GMB, producing more as a result of more irrigation. You saw the record wheat crop. We are expecting 700,000 metric tons this year. In 2017, we produced 94,000 metric tons. So this is part of this broader climate-proofing strategy. So we must also, of course, construct silos. Oh, there is the village they spoke about the 35,000. Again, each of these village business unit is a company. So we're establishing 35,000 companies in villages. For example, this one is a number of households. Vanhu vari muraini, Zviruvi, 43. Saka, now what they get is the equivalent of $47 every month, where they got zero, just as a result of this intervention, where we deliver water to villages as a constitutional right, but we also deliver water to villages because water becomes an economic enabler, where the bores are sufficiently prolific. And as I say, the President, His Excellency Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, has restored dignity to women and girls. You no longer have to walk 7-8 kilometers to fetch water from the nearest mufuku dug in the middle of the river, because this is now delivered to your village, and you now have more time to do the things that you need to do. As you ramp up production, you must also ramp up storage. So there is an example of the AI-powered silos. We are building on 14 sites these 56,000 metric ton silos that are automated, and the CEO, GMB, is here. You probably, if he wants to, without losing the confidentiality associated with, he can peep on his gadget into one of these silos and show you now what it looks like, what the maize looks like on his gadget. That's the AI-powered silos. They'll be able to tell you the temperature, the moisture. In the past, if you had 7 silos like that, one would have to be empty at the end, because you now have to turn the maize every month. That is what GMB does. Every month at the silos, you turn the maize from that silo into the next one, because weight upon weight creates what is called stack burn. Unogadzira maputi pazasiposa nokuti ari kupisana. Now AI, you ventilate them, you leave the maize there for 5 years without touching, unlike in the past where you could only store for 3 or so years. Now we're increasing the silo storage space from 750,000 metric tons to 1.5 million metric tons by 2030. The plan is, with 496,000 hectares developed, of which 350,000 hectares will be irrigated cereals every summer, to produce 1.8 million metric tons, whether it rains or not. And our consumption is 1.5 million metric tons, and some for feed, so you'll have a surplus every year from 2030, whether it rains or not. So you must have somewhere to store. And this storage policy is guided by, we must have 3 years physical storage. So we are creating 3 years physical storage, so that if the irrigation fails, if it does not rain for 3 years, in 2031 to 2033, you will still have enough in your storage space. That's the wisdom of the president. So I just wanted to show you that I worked somewhere before I became what I am. I spent 20 years in the tobacco sector. And I remember, you look at the low years there, we went to 48 million kilograms as a result of the land reform. When we moved from the 1,500 large-scale producers to now 135,000 growers, 85% of them smallholder, 60% of them beneficiaries of the land reform program. Now we have record production. Last year, we were 355 million kilograms, a record. This year, we've already surpassed the 355 million kilograms. Sadly, the price is not as good, not as firm as last year. But tobacco production has attracted the smallholder, who on average now get a gross of 9,800 US dollars per grower, which is a massive increase, 70% increase from what they were receiving in 2017. But across the sector, there have been massive increases. There are 22 enablers that we track in agriculture, among them finance. We track also mechanization. We've seen a 4-fold increase in the number of tractors that we now operate at about 18,000 compared to a mere 8,000 in 2020. And as I said, we wanted to become a $15.8 billion industry. I wanted to conclude by saying two things. The first are the principles that we want us to, that's an independent assessment of food security in Zimbabwe, that in 2020, 42% of Zimbabweans were judged to be food insecure. In 2025, 28%, and that trend will continue. You will have heard that Zimbabwe was taken out of the food hunger spots by WFP and FAO in 2024, and that last year we moved from number 140-something to be the second best in the SADC region, and to be very well placed in the world. And we continue on that path. I think Zimbabwe certainly will go beyond what we were in the past. The principles, we said we want to be the agriculture, food systems, and rural transformation strategy to guide us to 2030. It has 10 pillars, but I will not go through these pillars. You already have this. If you don't, I'm sure a copy can be availed, you an e-copy. What I want to talk about are the principles that undergird all this. The first is that agriculture must be a business, irrespective of scale. Kana une huku 1 yomusuhu ngaikandire rushanu pagore ichiita mazai 10 painokandira poga poga uchibudisa hukwana sere, saka inofana kukupa hukwana 40 pagore. Kana une huku 1000, manage them as a business irrespective of scale. The second is climate smart agriculture. Every farmer must think climate smart. If at household level, the sustainable intensive conservation agriculture model complemented by agroecological tailoring, at larger scale, irrigation. Then the third aspect is a value chain approach. If I use an example of where I worked previously, a kg of apples out of Claremont would probably be maybe 60, 70 cents. A kg of apples in Spa is $2.60. So farmers must retain more of the value themselves, because far too often we're at the bottom of the pyramid. So we must just go beyond production to be able to go to the other node of the value chain to be able to retain more of these values, more of this value on our farms. The fourth thing is the ecosystem approach, or a systems approach to thinking. If you are on a farm, it is not just agriculture. Agriculture must work in an ecosystem that enables agriculture to thrive. So as you think like a businesswoman, that this must happen in order to accelerate these other things, which is why we talk about the 22 enablers. Then the fifth, and perhaps not clearly illustrated in the pictorials that I showed you, is that Zimbabwe invariably has now gone, in terms of production and volumes, beyond the bread basket years. So Zimbabwe no longer wishes to be a bread basket of anyone. And I repeat, we don't wish to be a bread basket of anyone. Zimbabwe too, as we are urging farmers to have a value chain approach, Zimbabwe, the country, must lead in a value chain approach to transform Zimbabwe to become the agro-industrial hub of Southern Africa. That's the fifth and most important aspect. So Zimbabwe, by dint of geography, nicely nestled in the middle of Southern Africa, with very good soils, very good climate, but most importantly, good logistics, of course, but most importantly, of an agro-industrial hub. Finally, 2026, 2027, summer season, the planning has begun, but we are planning for the West and, of course, hoping for the best. Our plan is based on 6 pillars, and I project them here. The first pillar is the enhanced strategic grain reserve, riding on the AI-powered silos, that we must ensure that we purchase as much maize from this past good harvest as is possible to ensure that we will have a cushion going into 2027. The second, of course, is accelerating this climate-smart agriculture intervention. The third, as you can see there, is that dealing with the integrated financing approach, inclusive of de-risking, that at a sovereign level, the Minister of Finance is working with the Africa risk capacity to ensure that we get sovereign climate risk on the country, but we also want insurance at Fumvuza level, the 3 million households. And we have a plan that in the next 3 years, all of our production, especially by Fumvuza Intwasa farmers, will be insured. Then, of course, there are the 5 financing arrangements. We are looking at incentivizing cereal production in the 2026-2027 season by giving a better price for anyone who delivers to GMB. And your Pillar 4, of course, looks at livestock. And livestock in the categories of beef, looks at dairy, looks at goats, looks at poultry, and especially the smaller stock because they are more drought resilient. We are looking at establishing ward drought mitigation centers. We have 1,620 rural wards. And we want in each of these wards the people to know that should there be no rivers running, bores drying up, but we have, as government, designated a center as a ward drought mitigation center where you will find water, where you will find feed, where you will find disease control. And we have established, and of course, we commissioned one at Garanyemba in 2024. Then the enhanced imports to complement the strategic grain reserve, to complement whatever harvest we have from the lean 2026-2027 season, and this will be announcing the format for it. It will have 2 levels, the importation by households, but also importation. I've said, are there business people here? I see all of you are business people because agriculture has become a business. So business people, see business in our hunger, but do not profiteer from our hunger. We will use the state apparatus with sufficient armory and arsenal to be able to deter that, including using the strategic grain reserve to offload to ensure that business can thrive in an environment where you do not profiteer. But perhaps the 6th one, and perhaps part of this discussion and conversation, is this coordination, early warning, and capacitation. Capacitation not just for the extension system of farmers, but I'm creating a WhatsApp group. I was being told on Monday, now I have 20,000. Ndinapona masabuku, 35,000 in the country. I want to be speaking to masabuku every day. So I'm creating a WhatsApp group ya masabuku chat. Vanenge vachitaura neni, ndichiti kwenyu kwakadini, kuti yanaya here, kwadini. Ndeta WhatsApp group ya madzi shechet, WhatsApp group ya madzi mambo chat, tichitaurirana nyaya kuti maona here pfumvudza, maona here kuti kwaita uma, kunonaya here, and what are the early warning things. So we must learn from 2024, emerge in 2026, 2027, bold, more united, and more determined, so that the increasing frequency of droughts in the coming years will not scare us, but challenge us to survive in a climate-smart environment. I know I have taken a bit of time in order to explain, especially because you have people online. So thank you very much. I wish you a most productive discussion.
A round of applause for Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, you can remain standing. A round of applause for the Honorable Minister once again. You know, according to the program that I prepared, I was supposed to have a fireside chat or an interview with the minister. But his presentation emptied all my questions. But I know I'm not... No.
Let me be the MC. Let me the events director. I will take 10 questions from the floor.
That's where I was going now. To say I've got a monopoly of questions, but I'm sure within this room there are questions that can be asked. So the mic, I've got the mic so that anyone who has got a question, the minister can field the questions. Mine were exhausted during his presentation. So,
noting that I have another 5 minutes or so, please be bold.
Yes, there's one there.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you for sharing the resilience plan, household level, and the national strategy. My question comes after the observation of dams such as Mazoe dams not reaching full capacity, probably with decent rainfall this year. I remember when other dams were almost full, it was 13% then. I'm not so sure of the numbers now. What are the immediate strategies to correct that in the coming season in terms of dams such as Mazoe reaching full capacity in case we have the rainfall? Thank you.
Please, very quickly to the point, to the question. Do not say I am, because
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you. You talked about the issue of agroecology and the fertilizer. So what steps are you taking, or how can we approach for us who are doing organic fertilizer so that it can also be part of Fumvudza, since those are locally available materials that can be used by farmers at their own homestead to reduce their cost of production? Thank you.
Good. Next.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. My question is on other water bodies such as quarries. And in fact, I'm just thinking of quarries in this case. What's the policy regarding use of water from those quarries? Because we know we've got dams, rivers, and bowls. Thank you.
Next. Some gender balance, please.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I wanted to ask, how can we coexist agriculture and mining activities? Because we've heard complaints of farmers who have their local water bodies getting distracted because of mining activities. So how can we coexist the two industries?
Gender.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. My question is, does the government have a strategic, specific initiatives to empower women that are in small-scale farming? Thank you.
Okay, there's another lady here, maybe the last one.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My question is, do we have a plan in place to handhold and empower the next generation? For me, success is showing me your successor. Thank you.
There's one last one, Honorable Minister.
Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. My question is that since you have mentioned about the unavailability or insufficient supply of fertilizers due to the Strait of Hormuz, is there any research that's being done to supplement your conventional fertilizers with the use of foliar fertilizers and biostimulants so that probably we can at least have the full utilization of the little fertilizers that we are having? Thank you.
Any further question? They are this side.
Thank you, Honorable. I'm Clever Mkoe from Mkambo. We work with agricultural markets and Land Fortune Partnership, a digital marketplace that was recently launched. My question is around our agricultural mass markets that distribute more than 70% of our food systems. But the infrastructure, we find it lacks a lot of development. I'm not sure whether there are any plans through our local government, Minister of Agriculture, to develop those markets. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You spoke about farming as a business. So I wanted to ask, of the village business units that we have in the country, how many have been capacitated to become value addition centers so that they can become sustainable businesses?
The last one, we said 10. I have 9. I will not answer these 9 until you give me the 10th.
10th question. Yes, there's.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, if you had to invest in only one area of Zimbabwean agriculture today, where would you invest and why? Thank you.
Well, very good. You were listening very attentively. Mazoe Dam, yeah, 3 issues. First, we built on the catchment. And as just says, you leave Borodale, you know that catchment. That's where we've built houses. So disrupting flow. Second, artisanal mining around that dam has disrupted flow. So now the water flows into pits and not into the river. The third is that the Mazoe Dam was constructed in 1920. And the wall was added again a bit in 1962, I think. And we've noticed a crack within that wall, which is why we are attending to it. As you pass through, you probably see some excavators there now that are attempting to assist us to see what the problem is and how we can sort it out. So those are the issues, and that attending to those issues will be, as we are doing now, under the emergency riverine rehabilitation. You know, the president declared a state of disaster, 17 rivers, and we have just awarded contracts to 64 companies yesterday to do rehabilitation, hopefully before the commencement of the season, and that includes Mazoe. So we hope that we'll see these begin to flow again. Then this place for organic fertilizers. I think it's not said enough that organic fertilizers have been used since time immemorial. The biggest problem we had was you just went into your corral and you thought that a shovel was a measure. What you need is an analysis. So you know how much phosphate is in there. You can actually then be able to adjust and put the right amounts based on a soil analysis. And I know there's another question that has come through. We collected in, I think, 2020, 2021, 57,000 soil samples, literally so many from every village. And we've constructed the Zimbabwe soil pH map, which is why I've been able to tell you that 75 or 70% of our communal areas have pH 4.5 or less, so very acidic. And you know the toxicity that is associated with low pH, with aluminum toxicity coming through, which is why we have these 3 things on these communal soils. And they've been farmed for decades and decades. So first is that they are depleted of nutrients, essential nutrients. The second is, of course, the low pH. The third is that the structure is broken, which is why we need organic matter to assist in rebuilding this structure. So that is why there is a place for organics in Pfumvudza, especially. That's why we say use manure or any other organic matter to put in this precision planting hole so we can begin to rebuild that structure there. The one that was asking about whether you use water. Yes, of course, but that water must be tested first. What we've seen, especially if you want to use a mine shaft, disused mine shafts are existing boreholes. You can have that water tested, find out what crop can be tolerant to some of the higher minerals that are there, and this could be a very good source of water, quarries and disused mine shafts. Then associated with the empowerment of women, I have 23 working groups that I have deliberately formed. One of them is the Women's Working Group, and we hold quarterly meetings. And any of you who would like to participate in that working group, where we say, what are the women-specific issues related to agriculture that we can uniquely address? And many of them we have taken on board, including tractors. The women said, no, you are giving these tractors to these banks where we are competing with men. Why can't you give tractors to a dedicated bank when we're now given the women's bank tractors to be able to pass on to women? So, and we are looking at irrigation facilities. But Amma, where is Alice? Yeah, stand up. The CEO of the Agricultural Marketing Authority is one of you. And she attends those meetings and try and pester and ensure that farming has become a business. Thank you, Alice. Then associated with that youth, I have a youth working group. And again, we discuss very youth-specific issues. And through their own suggestion, we now have tractors destined for the youth through Empower Bank. And we are working with Empower Bank to do much more. And we have created through the Zimbabwe Youth Council this dedicated interaction where we want to say, what are the youth-specific issues? If I put in, maybe just put in that value chain, the agricultural development pentagon. If before this is what I developed in 2015. I was thinking, how do I communicate to farmers easily? And I developed what I called the agricultural development pentagon, which poses that at the center is the farmer. But the farmer must operate in a climate change environment and must make these decisions, aware of that all the time on a daily basis. But maybe the other are not. So these are the nodes of any value chain in agriculture. So it starts with the policy and regulatory aspects. What is the tone by government for maize, for apples, for livestock? And what are the regulatory issues? That then inform you what are the government priorities in terms of production. But once you do so, the next node is finance and inputs. Then you go into use those for production and productivity. Once you have done that, you go into logistics, markets, and storage. Once you have done that, you then go into markets and trade issues. So these are the nodes of the value chain, and far too often, people think agriculture is just one node, the land and production. And yet there are other nodes of the value chain where youth who are not as patient as me, I produce tobacco. Tobacco is a 14-month crop, and many youths are not as patient as that. Look at a node of the value chain that you want to participate in providing services and many other to those that are already producing. And I hope that this presentation will be distributed so people can study at home. Yeah, the role of these fertilizers and the Strait of Hormuz, I hope we're talking about the same Strait of Hormuz, not yokuenda kumba kuti ndakwenda kumujere mu Strait of Hormuz hawo. Ndikaira ndaenda mu Strait of Hormuz handibvumiri kubuda. Yes, there's been quite a lot of research regarding foliars, especially in the higher value crops. But certainly, I think now there's also space for cereals. I see the better farmers in terms of maize production using these foliars, and biostimulants also have a place. But there are nano-fertilizers now, nanotechnology into fertilizers, and we are beginning to explore the possibility of using those. Then there was an aspect regarding market infrastructure. Yes, the CEO Ama is seized with that. I challenge the CEO Ama all the time that when I drive along the Goromonzi Road and go onto the Mashingo Road and go onto the Chinoi Road, I see these women by the roadside. And her success is measured by how fewer those women become on a daily basis, because a structured market for them will have been developed. I said to her, go to the UK, see whether those women in the UK spend a bit of time by the roadside like the Zimbabwean women do. Find out the differences and how they got there, and ensure that by 2030, women are more decent and they don't spend time by the roadside selling. They should spend time producing, and they must produce to a defined market. And that comes with market infrastructure. You've seen what we've done in Mbare as a government, and we want to be able to replicate that. But I also think that business people must see business in constructing market infrastructure, because agricultural production is going to increase. Village business units, aggregation, value addition, and beneficiation, that's the destination. That's rural development. That's rural transformation for Vision 2030. And we are starting, do we have another representative? We are starting with 40 village business units in Gokwe that are aggregating for delivery to the Norton tomato processing plant, and we hope that there will be lessons and this proof of concept will be replicated. Then there was a question, the 10th one, because I had said, insisted on 10 questions, and I actually noted that you ran out of ideas, and wanted me to become your business consultant, to say, if you were in your space and trying to start in agriculture, where would I start and in which area? Whoever asked can ask of my private time as a consultant, and I'll be able to assist them. So thank you very much, and have a most productive day.
Where there is no picture, it didn't happen. So that's what I was told. So let's come and get a picture. Let's move fast, guys. Goko yakamirira. Our panelists, can you also join? Our panelists, can you also join the minister on the stage? One, two. Guys, let's move fast, guys. You heard the minister. The picture will not be taken until you join him on stage. Thank you. Another round of applause for Honorable Minister as we take our seats. Opportunity to thank our sponsors, our platinum sponsor, GMB, AFC, our silver sponsor. We also have bronze sponsors, Millibrand, Zimbabwe Free Range Poultry Association, TIMB, AMA, Farm Makeover, as well as Seedco. Those are our sponsors. A round of applause for our sponsors. Thank you, our sponsors, for making today happen. So we want to continue with the program. For those who are yet to have their tea, I'm sure you can go by the entrance if there's still some refreshments there, so that we can continue with the program. So now we are heading towards our panel discussion. We have got our panelists that I'll call, and the panel discussion is on the topic, seeds, soil, and strategy, building a climate-proof agriculture sector. And the topic there is irrigation targets, early warning systems, input tracking, and agro-processing. So I'm going to, some of my panelists, they've accompanied the minister, and they will be back soon. But let me call upon the CEO of DripTech, Mr. Bob Henson, to come and join us on the stage. A round of applause as he comes through. Let me also call upon the General Manager, CBZ Agro Yield, represented here. That's Mr. Wellington Mtizwa, but he is represented here. May you come through, sir. Let me also call upon the CEO of the Agriculture Marketing Authority, Ms. Alice Mafiza, to join us. Let me also call Dr. Jacob Gusha, Director, University of Zimbabwe Agro-Industrial Park, to join us on stage. We were also supposed to be joined by the Permanent Secretary in the ministry, but due to other commitments, he hasn't been able to join us. There's someone I was looking at in this room, and I was saying maybe she can actually join us because she knows the sector and some of the things that we are going to discuss. I don't know. Okay. So I'm now told that the Permanent Secretary is represented. I'll get the name. I had not been given the name of who is representing the Permanent Secretary, but welcome, sir. My team, can you please give us some mics? Can you please give us some mics so that our panelists can use? Whilst they are getting their mics. So we have just had a powerful address by the minister. And we enjoyed, through his thought-provoking insights into the sector, some very interesting developments that are taking place within the sector. Now we want to turn to our panel discussion, where we'll dig deeper into the practical realities of building a climate-proof agriculture sector. Our panel brings together exceptional expertise across the agriculture value chain, as you have seen as I was calling upon my panelists. So over the next hour, we'll explore how Zimbabwe can build resilience against climate shocks while driving agricultural growth, food security. We'll move from policy to practice, from finance to farming, and from challenges to solutions. So we will begin as represented. Let me just, maybe for introductory purposes, I didn't get the names for the two gentlemen representing the Permanent Secretary as well as the CBZ. So if you have got a mic, sir, maybe you can just introduce yourself so that we can also begin.
Thank you. My name is Clemens Tadere Rabonje. I'm Chief Director of Business Development, Markets and Trade in the Ministry of Agriculture, Mechanization and Water Resource Development.
Thank you, sir. And from CBZ?
Thank you, Kuti. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wisdom Mukaro. I'm the head of credit for CBZ AgroYield, standing for Mr. Mtizwa. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for those introductory introductions. Let me start by Clemens. As the chief architect of agricultural policy implementation, that is the ministry, how would you assess Zimbabwe's current state of preparedness for climate shocks that are becoming increasingly frequent? Where are we strongest and where do we have the gaps?
Thank you for that question. I think the bulk of the work was done by the Honorable Minister, really. He did a good job in terms of how we are really trying to build a resilient agricultural sector. The blueprint that we are using really is the agricultural food systems and rural transformation strategy. That is hinged on 10 pillars. So this is our policy document, which is our reference point in terms of how we are going to achieve that. There are 10 pillars, and one of them is the enabling environment. The issue of building enabling environment for everyone, the private sector, government, and development partners to be able to participate in the process. That is an important pillar that we are also looking at. Then the other pillar in that policy document is the one for sustainable production and productivity. We want to be able to ensure that we are building on our production and productivity. We want that to be resilient. And then I think the most important component of this blueprint is the climate adaptation, mitigation, and resilience building. And this is being looked at, as what the minister was explaining, at the household level and then at the national level. And at the household level, this is where we are talking about the Pumvuza, and the focus for this particular season is not just the halls, but also to ensure that we go on to mulch, because that's where how we can ensure that we conserve. And then we have got agro-tailoring, where we are saying let's not just do maize, where the agroecological conditions are saying we need traditional grains. So the agro-tailoring is also another issue. You know about the bores that we are drilling. Those are also at household level, building into village business units that are resilient because they've got now water that is from the bores. And then at the national level, you heard the minister talk about our target, 496,000. We are now at 273,000 hectares. So we want to build to that level. And we want in particular to ensure that we maximize on existing water bodies. We have about more than 10,000 water bodies that are around, and we need to utilize those. That water has to be used for production of crops, livestock, has to be used for electricity generation, for agro-tourism. That's what the minister was saying. We need to utilize that, and the dam as an economy is really an anchor in terms of how we can achieve national resilient agriculture food systems.
Thank you for those insights. Now, when the minister was giving his presentation, he spoke about quite a number of bores that are being drilled across the country. One number that I can mention is 35,000 bores. And in Zimbabwe, when you talk about bores, one company that you normally associate with bores is DripTech, because some of those tanks that we see are from DripTech. And today we have Mr. Bob Henson, who is the CEO of DripTech. Now, Mr. Henson, we often speak about irrigation as the answer to climate variability. But from your technical perspective, what is the single most underutilized water management solution that could transform smallholder farmers in Zimbabwe, and what is holding it back?
Thank you. First of all, we shouldn't look at irrigation as being a substitute for good farming practices. Good farming practices have to come first, and I've been to numerous auction sales where farms have gone broke, and you'll see there a big pile of irrigation equipment. So our farming practices have to be correct first, and that might include a better conservation of moisture through minimum till farming. There are many other aspects to managing drought conditions other than just pure irrigation. On the irrigation side, clearly the older systems of sprinklers are now antiquated in terms of their efficiency. They actually disperse a lot of water into the atmosphere. A lot of the water lands on ground, which then evaporates before it starts soaking into the ground. So sprinkler systems are not efficient. They've been a good tool in the past, but the tool to use now clearly is drip irrigation. You'll find most farmers in the country now have become familiar with drip irrigation. The price of drip irrigation has come right down to an affordable level, And there are many of our small-scale farmers as well as our large-scale farmers are employing this system. So I would say that micro irrigation in that area now is available to all manner of farmers, whether they be large-scale commercial or small-scale, and it is being employed successfully. Along with micro irrigation, the cost of moving water is significant for any farmer. And most of our small-scale farmers are using diesel or petrol pumps, or they're manually moving water by hand. So the advent of solar is going to change the landscape in terms of what can be irrigated from the resources that are there. Solar energy now has become, the technology has improved to such a point that it is very, very affordable. Pumps are now, you're able to purchase pumps that just work directly off a solar panel, and this opens up a massive window in terms of what can now be grown and produced on a small scale as well as on a large scale. We are growing ourselves large scale. We're growing a lot of blueberries, and we move 100 hectares, 120 hectares of water 3 times from a water source that's 4 kilometers away. We move all of that by solar, and it's a very affordable system now. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So we heard about drip irrigation as well as use of solar as some of the solutions that can be used by smallholder farmers as well as large-scale farmers, as you heard. Even the blueberry farmers are also using that. Let me come to Ms. Mafidza from AMA. You are at the forefront of building resilient agricultural markets. And recently, the authority has been directing grain and oilseed contractors to submit registers of contracted farmers and enforcing compliance with Statutory Instrument 140 of 2013. What role does this regulatory oversight play in protecting smallholder farmers from exploitative practices, and how is AMA balancing enforcement with the need to encourage more contractors to participate in structured production programs? I know it's a mouthful, but I'm sure you got the question.
Thank you for your question. So I think I will start by saying AMA first is a marketing authority. Regulation follows. And I think that is what the Honorable Minister was trying to say. We now need to make sure that the commodities that have not been well marketed are marketed. So my point today is how best do we create demand for any product in Zimbabwe? That statutory instrument that you are talking about can only be successful if we create demand for crops that we have a comparative advantage in Zimbabwe. Farmers can only be encouraged to register, to comply with the law, if they know there is an organized market at the end. The kind of crops that I'm talking about include crops such as sweet potatoes, ground nuts, round nuts, tomatoes, crops such as red and white sorghum, pearl millet. What have we done to harness the comparative advantage of producing these crops at low cost? When our farmers realize the value at the end, they will be able to quickly come and register. Contractors will see the value because they know there is something at the end. And so you will see that for a long time, what we have been marketing are crops that we have been largely importing in Zimbabwe. We are not marketing crops that are low cost in Zimbabwe. And this calls for us, all of us in here, we are all investors at some level. And I don't think we have harnessed that strength in us. We talk of crowdfunding for other business, but not crowdfunding for industries to do with agriculture. So I'm calling all of us to sit down to say who is the investor in Zimbabwe. Because only when you invest in the produce that we are good at comparative advantage can people easily register, can people easily contract, And can people see the value of the things that the Honorable Minister was talking about? I just want to end by saying that this quote, nations prosper not by trying to produce everything, but by specializing in what we can produce at lowest relative opportunity cost. I will also say with this one thing, it is very easy for any farmer to produce sweet potato in Zimbabwe, but because we have not raised the demand for sweet potato flour, because we have not raised the demand for sweet potato biscuits, people will not see value. People will shun those things and still cry that there is no need to comply with the law. So we cannot do any trade, we cannot do any business without compliance. And we need the volumes, we need the quality, we need the quantity. And that is the role of AMA to facilitate business in Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Let me stay a little bit with you there. Also in line with the topic of the day, I understand AMA is also doing a little bit of work with regards to our irrigation systems and schemes. Maybe you can share a little bit on what AMA is doing with regards irrigation.
So the development of irrigation schemes came because we realized that irrigation is a form of insurance, but it will never substitute the good management practices. If we do not have irrigation, it means that during years like this year, when a drought has been spoken about or when El Nino has been spoken about, people will not have a fallback position. These funds are coming from the SI 87 of 2025, which funds have been directly allocated towards irrigation development. In those funds, we have raised more than $6 million USD, more than ZWIG $120 million. And we have about 28 irrigation schemes earmarked for development as we speak, and launches have started of these irrigation schemes. And I think we are partnering with you to create documentaries so people see value of where this money is being spent by government. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. A round of applause for the work that AMA is doing with regards our irrigation schemes. Let me come to the academic side, but these days it's no longer just academic because universities are no longer just about theory, but they are now being innovative and also going into the commercial aspect. And we've got Dr. Jacob Gusha, who runs the UZ Agro Industrial Park. Now, the question to you is, you represent the intersection between research, innovation, and commercial agriculture. From your vantage point, what are the most promising innovations emerging from Zimbabwean research that could help farmers adapt to climate change?
Thank you very much. I'll start by saying climate change demands that we need to move from research but to practical solutions that can be easily adopted by farmers. So you would find out that we should actually move beyond publications that you end up seeing online, but to practical solutions. So the innovations that are actually emerging from research that can actually be able to build Zimbabwe to become climate resilient. One of them, I'll talk about climate smart crops and technologies. So with, there's a lot of work that has already been done with regards to crops that are capable of doing very well in those agroecological regions where we are not going to receive a lot of rains. For example, the minister was talking about agroecological tailoring, where we are saying, for example, the future grains, the sorghum, the rapoko, the millets, could be the solution, for example, for farmers who are in agroecological 4 and 5. You can actually also be able to say varieties of maize have been developed that are drought tolerant. So those are some of the key varieties that needs to be adopted by farmers from those areas. I would also further indicate that, for example, the agro-industrial park of the University of Zimbabwe. We are actually repositioning the future grains, the sorghum, the cowpea, as strategic commercial crops rather than crops of last resort. So those are some of the key innovations that are coming out of research. Furthermore, we're looking at the livestock side. We are talking about feed innovations. The use of jungle grass, the issue of alternative feed ingredients that are capable of stimulating livestock production, but at a lower cost, but at the same time, using different crop residues to actually manipulate production as a way of trying to make sure that there is efficient utilization of the available resources. Furthermore, the other innovation are coming from the value addition side, where I will talk about the sweet potato being utilized in bread making, for example, at the University of Zimbabwe Agro-Industrial Park, where we have got what we call a Nutri-Loaf that is produced out of sweet potato varieties. That's alone. We are trying to make sure that the moment we venture into value addition, we are creating market, we are creating investment, because farmers there, they are likely to easily adopt, and you would find out that, for example, the minister was talking about the Norton plant, which is going to be processing tomatoes. In such a case, it means those who are going to be producing, they now have got a market, and the moment they have got a market, they are going to be so much alert of the production aspect that are required. So that's how research is trying to make sure that it produces products which creates industry, which creates jobs, and in so doing, that's how we are trying to build that climate resilience. I will end by saying the future of agriculture now is not about producing more grain, but is trying to make sure that there is more value that comes out of a hectare that one holds or that one owns. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you for that last quotable quote. A round of applause for him. So we can talk about these solutions from drip irrigation, using solar. We can talk about all these solutions, but without funding, we will be found wanting. So let me come to you, Wisdom from CBZ AgroYield. How can farmers access funding for them to be able to be climate resilient? What are the gaps that are there, maybe, that are preventing farmers from accessing the funds that are available?
Thank you so much, Kudzi. So basically, the biggest probably misconception among farmers and various stakeholders is access to financing. Is it available? Can we access financing through the financial sector? I can say from a financial perspective, funding is there, but to bankable projects. So what is a bankable project? I think basically I will speak to mostly 3 documents which are required by any individual or a farmer or a stakeholder to access funding from a banking perspective. Basically, your first document, that's your proposal. So your proposal, basically, it details the purpose why you require that funding. So basically, when we go through your request, we need to first identify what is the purpose or nature of this funding. We go to financials. So basically, your financials, we are looking at the backward. How have you been performing in terms of your performance, in terms of that funding? And then one of the critical documents also, which is required among other various documents, is your cash flow. Basically, when financial institutions are giving you funding, they would want to know, how are you going to pay that money? What is the source of that money? Are you going to be able to meet your installment when it falls due? So basically, I would just urge each and everyone, when they are seeking funding, we need to ensure that we actually detail our proposal, especially our cash flow. We need to ensure that as much as possible, let's ensure we itemize or put all possible revenue streams and also your cost. Because basically when it comes to drafting or tailor-made in terms of installment, your proposal or facility tenure, it's based on your cash flows. When are you expecting to get your cash flows? That's when we now stagger in terms of your installment. And then the other misconception, probably from a farmer perspective or policymakers, is that when they are seeking funding for climate, it's already available. Or as a financial institution, they are supposed to give cheap money in terms of when it is funding climate, because it benefits the environment. Yes, it benefits the environment, but at the same time, again, remember, for any financial institution to do the lending, they are using depositors' funds. They've got a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that they've got a return in that capital they are investing. So let's make sure when you are doing your funding, we are able to demonstrate that we are able to repay the loan when it gets mature. So in terms of how we can bridge that gap, I think from a farmer perspective and also financial institution, we need to ensure that at least we are helping our farmers to come up with the technical support. So basically from a technical support, we've got agronomists, extension officers. They do provide guidance and assistance in a way to maximize your returns when you are doing farming. So basically when you maximize your returns, it actually increases your chances of loan repayments. And then also again, the regulator also, there is need to provide supportive, to incentivize, so that at least even from a financial institutions, they are able to also provide funding for those climate related agriculture smart. Probably I'll end by saying climate resistance is not just about protecting the environment, but it is about protecting productivity and also again increasing farmers' profitability. I think the minister spoke. As a farmer, we need to take it farming as a commercial entity, and at the end of the day, we need to make profit. Thanks.
Thank you. Anzi tisangoende kubank tichiti tikuda mari kana kuti mabhengi haasi kupa mari, but your projects should be bankable projects, and you must go with proposals that shows what you really need the money for, and also in terms of climate financing, that it doesn't follow that it has to be cheap because it's about targeted for the environment. I think maybe that's why in some jurisdictions they now use green bonds so that they can actually raise money specifically targeted for climate change, because even those who are investing will know that the returns are specifically and also in line with what is needed. Let me come back to you, Clemens. The Pfumvudza program, the minister spoke about it. It has been a flagship national strategy. As we refine its implementation, what are the critical lessons learned from recent seasons, and how is the ministry adapting the program to respond to evolving climate patterns, or already it's a program that responds to that? Or maybe, if I may put it differently, to say, as you have gone over various seasons, what new things have you introduced to make sure that the outcomes, and also maybe from an awareness point of view, whether people are really understanding it? The minister was talking about some people just do it for the sake of getting inputs. So maybe what are some of the issues that you are dealing with around that?
Thank you. I think one of the most important issues that we have noted is that even Pfumvudza itself is sensitive to rainfall, right? When we introduced Pfumvudza earlier on, the first year, on a Pfumvudza plot, I think we were able to achieve about 5.4 tons. The next year was not as good. The Pfumvudza yield fell to about 3.6. So it was sensitive, but not as sensitive as the conventional because where we had 3.6, the conventional was actually, below one ton per hectare. So it is sensitive. And we have introduced, I think you might have heard that government declared insurance an input, just like seed and fertilizer. So we are also saying, let's introduce insurance around the Pumbuza so that where we can actually ensure sustainability of production. And then the other issue is that, people have just been digging holes, and I think we need to ensure that we do all the conservation practices that makes Pumbuza more effective. So the issues of mulching, yes, there are challenges to do with the straws and the like, but really mulching, if we can mulch, it will improve the effectiveness of Pumbuza. The Pumbuza plot is small, but what is important is that the proof of concept has been made. So we now need this to be done at a scale, not just one plot. That might not be as impactful as we would want. So we want, I think as we move on, we also want to ensure that we can have that practiced as a scale, at scale. And farmers need not use this as a way of getting inputs, but rather as a way of farming, right? As a way of farming, as a way of ensuring that they get more production on a small piece of land. That is very important. There are also other improvements that, because the issue of misuse of inputs and the like, I think we have now introduced some tracking. We have also saying that when you have been supported, you must pay, about 10 kgs back. We are trying to build inculcate into the farmers that responsibility, so that they know they are supposed to pay something to pay back something when they harvest, so that it's not just that dependence syndrome. We are doing away with that. So I think those are some of the issues, but I can also talk about, we will improve very much if we can introduce, for example, the voucher system, so that it becomes, we reduce also on the distribution mechanism. So we're introducing vouchers as a way of, distributing the inputs that will also ensure that farmers can also get the inputs that they want in time.
Maybe as a follow-up, the Clemens, you spoke about maybe the need to now move from just one small plot, but to do it on a larger scale, but using the same concept. Maybe I might not be aware, and maybe some might not be aware. Has there been any developments or innovations in terms of the digging aspect? Because I think that's one area where most people are like, kuchera makomba, or digging holes is laborious. So has there been any innovations or developments around that area of digging holes?
Yes. I think the issue of digger hole, has been an issue. To say, look, it's really laborious. But when people realize that you can improve productivity, that changed the narrative from digaufe to digauji. So to an extent, the productivity aspect managed to change the perception, the narrative. But what is most important is that we mechanize. We mechanize Pumbuza. In fact, this is one very strong factor that is militating against the full adoption of Pumbuza. And I see there have been some machines, tools that have been that are now on the market that can do the drilling and the like. But still, I think we have not done much in terms of mechanizing Pumbuza. And this is an area that we need to continue to research and ensure that we bring products to markets that can, reduce the drudgery that is associated with with the proposal.
Thank you. So we are still, now we are talking about policy, and thank you, Clemens, for starting that conversation about the policy and implementation, maybe gaps that are there, and maybe where there is need for refinement. Let me come to you, Mr. Jensen. You work at the intersection of policy, intention, and on the ground reality. Where do you see the most significant disconnect between what policy promises and what farmers actually experiencing regarding water access and irrigation infrastructure?
Thank you. One of the big limiting factors with irrigation infrastructure is moving the water from its source to where it's going to be used in the land. And that costs a lot of money. It's a big investment, and farmers want to know that investment is secure and safe. In the communal environment, there needs to be more, I believe there needs to be more security of tenure, as it were, that farmers who invest in irrigation are allocated an amount of water which they can be assured of accessing through the season. You can't have a situation where a farmer puts in an irrigation scheme and then other users on that scheme maybe abuse the water, or maybe someone opens the valve on the dam and that water runs out. The potential irrigator, the farmer who wants to put in a scheme, won't put in a scheme unless he has some security that he will be able to access that water for the duration of the crop. So that needs to be looked at. It's all very well having dams and so on built, but that water needs to be allocated out, and it needs to be metered properly so that it's not abused and that it's paid for to Zinwa. Zinwa offer a very good service in that they monitor water usage. They develop dams for storage, and but unless that water is properly metered and properly allocated out on the basis of the crops that it's going to irrigate, there are accepted volumes that are required in cubic meters for a hectare of water, a hectare of land, and that allocation needs to be properly managed. So then on the other aspect, boreholes also have to be properly monitored, and boreholes should be monitored at a certain time every year, probably end of the dry season, to ascertain whether that water is sustainable, the source, or whether it's depleting. Underground water comes from the surface from rainfall at the end of the day. It might not be rainfall in that particular area where the farming is undertaken, but it is rainfall nevertheless. And the more boreholes we have, the more the underground water resources are depleted. So that needs to be managed so that it's sustainable.
Thank you for those insights in terms of how we can continue to manage so that we can effectively use the resources that we have. Earlier on, Alice, you spoke about the work that AMA is doing with regards the irrigated land. And in terms of policy, how is AMA ensuring that these irrigation investments translate into tangible market access and improved incomes for the farmers, especially the smallholder farmers, and what more needs to be done to scale such investments up?
Thank you. I think what we encourage any farmer to produce, irrespective of whether they're on irrigated land or dry land, is the assurance that there is going to be a buyer that is buying at a lucrative price. Because all farmers are rational people, they are producing for profitability. And our mandate as AMA is to make sure that marketing is taken seriously and that our farmers are linked to those markets, whether they are local or regional or international. And our role is to make sure that there is a fair playing ground in terms of pricing, whether it is locally or international. And I think that is something that we will push strongly going forward. And you also don't produce because you want to produce. Another element that has remained quiet and has not been well done in terms of capacity building farmers is the issue of standards. So yes, we want you to be on irrigation land, but we want you to know who are you producing for and what kind of standard do they want. And it's going to be an initiative that we are going to push strongly going forward. You are producing for this particular market and the standards that they want are these, and so you get this particular price and the cycle goes on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, on that. Let me come to the academic side, Dr. Gusha. How can we better bridge the gap between agricultural research and practical applications on the ground? What is preventing research findings from reaching farmers at scale?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll start by saying Zimbabwe has a lot of excellent research institutions. However, the challenge is not necessarily in terms of knowledge generation, but it is about scaling adoption. And the barriers to that could be the issue to do with weak extension research linkages. You would find out that researchers often publish in international journals, and in most cases, these published papers, they rarely, or the practical solutions that are generated through that research are rarely translated into tangible, practical solutions that farmers can easily adopt. The second thing is you'd find out farmers, they don't normally adopt technology because it is published, but they can only adopt, especially if they have seen it functioning, working, through possibly demonstrations or learning centers. So as long as we don't have learning centers that are clear to the farmers and they can actually see the technology functioning, it will be very difficult sometimes for them to adopt it. So universities actually and research institutes should become learning centers, especially considering that the minister was talking about village business units. I believe that in those village business units, if research extension can link up together, produce demonstration or learning centers there, so that some of these technologies we are talking about is illustrated at the farmers nearby farm, they can actually be able then to adopt. The second issue is about limited commercialization. You know, I'm happy that the government have actually now brought in what we call heritage-based education 5.0, which now brings in research, innovation, industrialization, and commercialization at the core of academic institutions. That could also be the possible route to try and make sure that there is scaling up of adoption of these generated technology. You would find out of that, the moment we start seeing research generating products, research generating technologies, research producing businesses and startup companies, then you would find out that it will be easier for farmers to then adopt some of those technologies. There could be also another third factor could be lack of pilot projects. When I'm talking about pilot projects, I'm talking about, for example, the agro-industrial park now, it's now a center where innovation is tested at commercial level. Because sometimes you'd find out that if innovation is not tested at commercial level, We may talk about certain innovation being productive, being producing certain tonnage per hectare. But as long as it is not thoroughly tested in those pilot projects, definitely we may not be able to persuade the farmers to then also take it up. The other issue could be the issue of financing. I think there's a discourse between research, extension, and financing in the sense that it's really, if innovations, some innovations, they never reach the farmer because no one wants to finance scaling up. If that is not there, then definitely we may have problems. So I will conclude by saying farmers do not adopt research because it is published, but they adopt research because they see it working in the neighbor's field. Thank you.
Thank you. So those centers that you are developing with the agro-industrial park probably will also be used as examples where some of this research is working. You also spoke about the gap between financing some of these innovations. Now, coming to you, Wisdom, are our financial products truly aligned with the realities of climate-smart agriculture, or we are still financing yesterday's models that didn't have issues of climate finance? And how should agricultural lending evolve to support both resilience and productivity?
Okay, thank you so much, Kudzi. So I think it's a fair challenge. And I believe the answer, we are in a transitional. So basically, what is traditional lending? Traditional lending is whereby financial institutions use a model of input disbursement. So basically, your financial institutions are providing inputs to your farmers. That's in the form of seed. They give you your fertilizer, your basal or top dressing fertilizers. They give you your chemicals and your fuel. So basically, that's your traditional model of lending. But we want to think beyond that, because that model is not sustainable. We need to move on to a support investment that brings long-term resilience. So basically, we need to ensure that what else can we give to farmers so that they are commercially valuable. So for farmers, basically what we need, lending is no longer about just giving working capital. We need to issue instruments, or we provide financing that can take a longer period through your irrigation, be it the construction of dams, your solar power. So basically, what am I saying? If you want to do commercial farming business, as much as you are given your inputs, you also need to ensure that you've got adequate irrigation. I think we've got an impending El Nino this year. You need to have control of your variables as a farmer. You need to irrigate at the right time when you need the water, at the right quantity at the same time. So you need also to invest in the irrigation. One of the cost drivers that mostly affect farmers is how to contain cost of your production. I think the minister spoke about the issue of costs being increased due to geopolitical that are happening. The cost of fuel is, at the moment, is very expensive. As farmers, we also need to ensure that we take in or tap into solar-powered generation. Let's also invest. You can't be running a pivot on a generator using fuel. It's very expensive. What it means, you are now sort of eating into your margins. But if you invest into solar-driven, it means at least you are able to manage your costs. Although, like I have earlier alluded to, your cash flow determines how you are going to pay your loan. So basically, when you are drafting your cash flows, you need to ensure that even your timing of your cash flows, give a period of at least 3 years to 5 years, so that these smart, climate-smart agriculture they take long for you to pay. You can't pay them on a seasonal basis, which is either your 12 months, be it you are doing wheat, you are doing your maize. You can't pay those loans using a short term. At the end of the day, that's when some farmers might fail to pay their loans, and they are saying there is a mismatch in terms of loan maturity because you have requested a wrong product. You are looking for a working capital, which required to be paid within 12 months. While you are trying to finance a capital equipment, which requires you to be repaid within a 3-year or 5-year tenure, so that at least your cash flows, you are able to manage other costs. And then when it comes to also financial institution, the issue of cash flows, I think, is very critical. I've been mentioning this. So I'm also urging the farmers to ensure that those documents, they need to be reviewed or to invest in looking for any expert so that at least they are able to guide you. Farming, I can tell you, it's a viable project. But if you don't plan it accordingly, that's you end up having challenges or having shortfalls. So I think I'll end by saying, if we finance yesterday's farming models, we will continue to face those yesterday challenges. But if we finance innovation and resilience, we will continue to build a more productive, food secure, climate resistant, and agriculture sector.
Thank you. A round of applause for our panelists. Before we head to the last two segments of our panel discussion, let me take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, our platinum sponsor, that's GMB. We'll hear a little later from the CEO. We also have AFC, who are our silver sponsors, and then our bronze sponsors. We have got Zimpapers through the Milibrandt. We also have Zimbabwe Free Range Poultry Association. We also have TIMB. We also have AMA. We also have Farm Makeover, as well as Seedco. A round of applause for our sponsors. Now, as we head into our last two segments, if I may ask my panelists to shorten their responses a bit so that we can finish all the questions in the time that we have. And now we want to talk about practical realities and farmers' livelihoods. And I'll start with you, Clemens, in terms of smallholder farmers, who are obviously the backbone of Zimbabwe's food system. And also, they are the most exposed to climate risk. What practical interventions are being prioritized to ensure that grassroots realities inform national strategy rather than the other way around? So I'll take that question again. What practical interventions are being prioritized to ensure that grassroots realities, ground, and it inform national strategy rather than the other way around? Kuti national strategy, it's not tarisa ground. But kana muri tarisa ground first, you also tell us kuti this is actually the approach that we take. But what are the practical interventions that are in place?
The way I understand the question is, to me, rather than interventions, it is a process issue. How is government coming up with interventions that are targeted at farmers? I think for me, that's how I understand it. And I think I will start from the policy itself, the way the policies are developed. These are consultative processes and participatory, in fact. We have always gone to provinces and consult on what the issues are on the ground, and that has always informed what interventions come into place. You've heard the minister talk about the 26 working groups. That's again another effort that is to root whatever we are doing is rooted in the stakeholders, in the players, in the agri-food systems, farmers, private players. Now, if you look at even how our drought response strategy as we speak right now, with the 6 pillars that the minister talked about, it is actually spearheaded by the private sector. So the private sector is leading, and us as government, we are just in there as secretariat, but also, mobilizing people because of the convening power. So whatever we are doing is actually informed by people. The minister also have monthly, monthly working groups with the ministers of provincial affairs. And these are, there we are discussing the implementation of initiatives, the Pumbudza. These are allocated by provinces. So you hear the Minister of State really taking responsibility to say, okay, so why is it in my province is so small, so few plots have been done in that. So it is rooted in the people. The agriculture investment plan that we have developed, we have started off with in consulting provinces, and we have provincial agriculture investment plans, right, that have come to consolidate into the National Agriculture Investment Plan. So really, everything we do is consultative and participatory across. It's a wall of stakeholder, wall of community approach.
Thank you for that and showing that the policies that end up being approved in cabinet and implemented by the ministry would have come from the grassroots. Let me come to you, Bob, in terms of, technology is as good as adoption. And from your experience, what are the behavioral and cultural barriers that prevent farmers from adopting innovative irrigation and water conservative practices, and how can these be overcome?
There is a big requirement for training and for people to appreciate the technology that's out there that's appropriate for their particular crop and their particular budget. So we spoke about drip irrigation earlier, and we spoke about the uses of that. Often people think of an irrigated crop being a crop that's fully irrigated, like a wheat crop. A wheat crop, you don't expect any rain during the wheat season, and you irrigate the crop from the beginning to the end. But summer crops, we expect rain. Sometimes we have a lot of rain, and sometimes we don't have much. But what needs to be done, the biggest benefit of irrigation is to be able to predictably plant on a day. There is an ideal day for any crop to be planted. And maize, for example, and cotton have been proven that if you plant maize 1st of November compared to 1st of December, you will get a minimum of 25% increase in yield. If you're sitting and you're waiting for the rain to come, then all that time you are losing potential yield, even if you have a normal season after the 1st of December. So irrigation is a very good tool to manage your farming. And you don't need a lot of water. All you need to do is establish your crop. If you can establish your crop on the best day in the year, because you can manage your water, then that is a massive bonus and a massive yield potential gain. So managing your crop with irrigation rather than irrigating your crop with the view that it's making up for a shortage of rain is probably the biggest benefit you'll have from summer irrigation. Being able to apply some water during the season of the rainy season when there's a shortfall, obviously massively useful. But people think that you need to, for example, a drip irrigated land it's very expensive. Although drip irrigation has come down in price probably to 10% of what it used to be, it's still a very high investment to run a hectare of crop. And then you might put it on a crop, and in fact you find that it rains normally that season. So you've gone and spent all that money on investment which you're not going to use. So supplementary irrigation can be achieved with 10% of the infrastructure that you would need if you had a permanently irrigated crop. In other words, you buy 10% of the drip line that you require for that area, but you move the drip line manually. And this is appropriate technology for small scalers because it's not a big area that you're looking at. And if you move the irrigation, that drip line pipe, you can manage with 1/10 of the equipment that's required. So it needs education. Even in the commercial sector, there are so many commercial farmers that are unaware of the other uses for irrigation, and that is to be able to properly time your crop and to be able to save your crop during a period of stress due to drought.
Thank you. A round of applause for my panelists. Now, I know I promised my panelists that by 11:30 we should be leaving this room, and obviously some of them would have scheduled meetings, so I'm going to go to the last. I'll give you each a chance to respond. But I'll start with you, Alice, in terms of what are 3 transformative actions that you think AMA will take or need to take for us to make an impact in terms of the marketing side of things, maybe the climate resilient side of things? What maybe 2 or 3 transformative actions do you think we should be taking as we move ahead?
Thank you for that question. So 3 transformative actions. I think there's a certain architecture that Zimbabwe needs to build for our marketing to be a success. Financing and offtake has to be very clear. Guaranteed buyers, guaranteed prices, where we need to announce prices before the planting season. Let us do that to incentivize farmers to be more interested in producing. We need a clear production calendar. We don't want a situation where there's a time when there are no tomatoes on the market or a time when there is no any produce on the market. I think I would ask a question. We are so sure about a calendar for wheat from May to November. We are sure to leave that. We do have a calendar for summer from October to April, and then we've announced a marketing opening of the marketing season. But I think there's a calendar that we've left out, the August-October gap. Are there no crops that we can produce during that time to support our VBUs, to support our irrigation schemes, to support our farmers? Because I think there are certain crops that can be produced throughout the year. That production calendar has to be clear. We need a clear, deliberate strategy on industrial investment. We need composite milling plants, milk processing plants for genuine export industry. I think we've produced largely here in Zimbabwe for the local market, although our export statistics are increasing. But I think we've left out the majority of our small farmers from that export market. And so when we have a deliberate industrial investment plan, we will see more people come on board and we can have a deliberate export industry. I am talking like this because there are countries like China that are buying sweet potatoes in huge quantities. And it's a delicacy there. But here in Zimbabwe, we throw our potatoes at the time of selling. Why? We now need to develop that industrial investment. Lastly, although you said 3, We need a demand campaign in Zimbabwe to introduce new recipes for crops. We only don't need to eat Irish potato chips. From 11 to 12, we are hearing chips. It's smelling, the smell is all over in the town. We just don't eat broiler chickens, pigs, and beef. It's like that is our only diet we can have. We only talk of maize. What are we doing to change or create demand for other products? Because for your own information, we can have sweet potato biscuits. We can have sweet potato buns. We can have sweet potato bread. But what have we done about it? Because that is what we are good at Zimbabwe in terms of comparative advantage. So we need a demand campaign. How? We need to have a classroom education. As much as we've introduced agriculture from primary school, let us also introduce food and nutrition at primary school. Let us extend it into procurement, retail, and export markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, on that one. And in terms of that demand campaign, I know you spoke about putting it into schools and stuff. At Zimpapers, we've got the radios, we've got the newspapers, we've got television. You can come and partner with us and we can have that campaign together. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me come to you from the banker side, Wisdom. Maybe, what is your vision for the role of agribusiness finance in Zimbabwe's journey towards food security and export competitiveness, and how can government and industry partners support that vision? So it's still those three things, but asked differently.
Okay, thanks so much, Kudzi. So I think my vision with regards to agribusiness, finance is to go beyond simply providing loans and become a driver of agricultural growth. So as Zimbabwe, we've got vast agricultural land, we've got skilled farmers, and we've got potential to achieve food security and become a major agriculture export. But the question is, how do we unlock that potential? So I think in terms of our agriculture value chain, we need to ensure that at least we are funding, like what I've said, starting from the input distribution. We move on to also smart agriculture. We do the irrigation. We also provide mechanization. From a commercial perspective, I believe almost every farmer should own a tractor. The government has put forward some schemes where farmers are able to take Belarus tractors. We've got your John Deere tractors. The interests there are very affordable. The tenure for those facilities is 3 years, which is very also affordable. So we need to ensure that each and every farmer, or within your community, there is someone with a tractor nearby you. We also need to have a combine harvester.
Okay. Thank you so much, Wisdom. And Dr. Guja, maybe your last message is to the audience, something that they can take home with regards to this conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. I would want to conclude this conversation by saying Zimbabwe has all the ingredients to become a climate smart agricultural powerhouse. We have fertile land, capable farmers, very strong universities, innovative researchers, and a growing private sector. And our challenge is no longer knowledge, it is the integration. So if we try to make sure that our research, our production, our agro-processing, our finance, our markets, and policy, they work together, agriculture can become more than food production. It can become a driver of jobs. It can become a driver of industrialization. It can become a driver of national economic growth. And for the University of Zimbabwe Agro-Industrial Park, it is already demonstrating that these integrated models and agro-processing is no longer just a vision, but it's also something that is already happening and can be done and replicated nationwide to see Zimbabwe developing and the farmers becoming resilient in terms of climate variability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kusha. Bob, your last, maybe your most important message. What is the most important message you would leave with the farmers, investors, and policy makers today?
I believe timing in crop production is imperative. I believe that for a summer crop, the use of irrigation to manage that timing is imperative, and the subsequent ability to be able to supplement that crop during the season in order to secure your yields is another imperative. Thank you.
Thank you. And Clemens, your parting shot as we conclude this panel discussion.
So I think for us to transform and build resilient food systems, we need three things plus one. We need policy, an enabling policy, which your ministry has been really on the forefront trying to lead policy formulation. We need investment, and investment here is everyone. The first investor is the farmer, the private sector, the government, and the development partners. We all need to come together to invest in these resilient agro-food systems. We need, the third thing is innovation. We need to innovate. Digitalization, modernization, let's bring in these. This is the future of resilient agri-food systems. Toitao, precision agriculture, all those things, the use of drones, let's adopt that. And the fourth thing is that all this must be done in a very coordinated all of stakeholders, all of government, all of the community approach. So those things are very, very, very critical. And policy, investment, innovation, coordination, in what? In production factors of production. We agreed here that irrigation is more or less one of our panaceas. Yes, there are other agronomic issues, but we need irrigation. Let's invest, let's have policy, let's have innovation and coordination around irrigation. The same around markets, what my sister was talking about, and then around sustainability, around the environment. And so that we are protecting, we are preserving and conserving the environment so that resilience can persist. And so the two things that we need to have in mind, at the back of mind as we are doing all this, is really climate proofing and reduction of cost of production, so that we become a competitive Zimbabwe, a Zimbabwe that can become a hub for the southern region, not a breadbasket, but a hub, as what the minister was saying. Thank you.
I would say amen to that reduction in cost of production. A round of applause for my panelists. Whilst I take this opportunity to call upon Madam Tafaz Warupia from our Sales and Marketing Department to come with some tokens of appreciation to our panelists whilst they are still, before they leave the stage. Another round of applause for our panelists for such an insightful discussion, and also for taking this opportunity from their busy schedules to come and be with us and share some insights. May I call upon the CEO of Zimpapers, Mr. Chikoto, maybe to come and present the gifts to our guests. yaupesiwa vangotambidza vari padhuze. Thank you, Mr. Chikoto, and thank you to our panelists as they take their places. Without wasting time, let me call upon our General Manager for DAP, Mr. Munyaradza Atendi, to come and give us some closing remarks. And whilst he's coming, our sponsors, once again, GMB, our platinum sponsor, AFC, our silver sponsor, as well as our bronze sponsors, Millibrand, Zimbabwe Free Range Poultry Association, TIMB, AMA, Farm Makeover, as well as SEEDCO. A round of applause for our sponsors.
Thank you, Kudzi. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege to stand before you to just give this vote of thanks after the close of this insightful public lecture. On behalf of the organizers and all of us present and those online, I just want to extend our deepest appreciation to our guest of honor, Honorable Minister Dr. Anxious Masuka, for an inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. In absentia now, I know he's gone, but we want to just take time to say thank you. We know that he's got a busy, demanding national responsibilities, but he has given us his time to be with us this morning. I also then want to extend our deepest appreciation to the panelists that were here. Thank you, guys. We value your time, and we appreciate the information that you have given us. As Zimpapers, we are not stopping here. Tomorrow we have another public lecture, this time with the Minister of Transport. For those watching us online, 8 o'clock, we'll be doing that public lecture. I also then want to say thank you to the guys behind the scenes, the Zimpapers events team that have put this up, and also the technical guys that are keeping us online. Most importantly, I then want to pay tribute to our sponsors. We really appreciate our sponsors. GMB, our platinum sponsor, we thank you. AFC, AFC Bank and AFC Insurance. We also want to then acknowledge Millibrand, Zimbabwe Free Range Poultry Association, Farm Makeover, SEEDCO. These guys have been running the journey with us. We'll speak behind the scenes. We'll also give them more mileage than they deserve. And obviously, Kudzi, this guy has got the vision. He's been running with these public lectures. We really appreciate what he's been doing. So guys, the last group I think I want to say thank you to is the colleges that are also in partnership with us. I think there was one speaker who talked about handing the torch to the next. I think we've got students here present. We really acknowledge you guys and thank you for attending. Farming is a business, and I think we have learned that today. I'm going back to my small plot to make sure that I'm productive. Otherwise, have a safe journey back to your offices, and let's all be productive. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
A round of applause for GM. I know he has done the vote of thanks, but the marketing manager, digital marketing manager, wanditumira message panapa zvikanzi ukasangoita kuti tiwane mukana wekutaura about our products tinono campaign kuti kudzingwe basa. Saka mai Mshonga hanzi muye mutaure about our marketing, all our products that we offer as Zimpapers. Can we have a round of applause as Mai Mshonga just to come for a few minutes to talk about some of the products that you might not know that we have at Zimpapers. We are not only about writing stories. or doing public lectures, but we've got other products that we can offer. She has got just 2 minutes to tell you some of the products that we have at Zimpapers. A round of applause as she comes. Let's continue clapping so that she can get the confidence. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I will not talk about all our products today. I'll just talk about our digital products. I'm sure we are all in agreement that information is key in our daily activities, and more so for farming, agriculture, and all that. However, there's so much information flying around. There are so many apps that are just being pushed out there, and sometimes people are getting so much information that then conflicts when you want to make your decision. So we've got digital products. We've got a combo product that I want to talk about today, which has all our publications as digital. Most of the farmers tend to go out very early in the morning to do their work. Some people that are in business tend to have very early morning meetings, and they might not have enough time to read the paper when it reaches their desks in the morning. Say we do physical delivery. But then with our digital publications, from 12 midnight, you're actually able to access our content on our, especially the e-paper. You're able to access it when we do publish. So if your favorite publication is the Chronicle, the Sunday Mail, or even the Herald, you're able to read it there. We also have an agriculture journal that is published every last Thursday of the month. It's an add-on, but it is purely about agriculture. And for those that may want to advertise, that could be one platform you can actually use, because it is favored by some people who do farming and those that are doing farm supplies. So that's what I came to talk to you about. We've got some gentlemen who've got some flyers, would want to give you free access to these publications. Can you just quickly distribute the flyers so that, Ngon Nyawoza, are you here? Yeah, can you kindly distribute the flyers to everybody who's here? And for those that have registered, when you got in, we'll be able to give you some free access as well for a month, so that you get to know our products, read them, give us feedback via the email, because we send them via email for those that are registered. And those that will get a flyer, you can just, there's a QR code there. You can access through the QR code, do your registration, and then you can get free access. That's what I came to talk to you about today. I hope you'll be able to enjoy our products and give us feedback on the products that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma'am Shonga. A round of applause for Ma'am Shonga. She's with our circulation department, the circulation manager. I think that's all I had for you today, but we can continue to interact. We've got Zimpapers teams that are here, but I wish you to have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you.
Waitirwa zvakanaka hama usaka